Well, good morning, good evening, happy Festivus, whatever's making your day glow. I'm the little man uh, in your monitor section today. Here we're going to break down the mix on Ready for the Times to Get Better, a song written by Allen Reynolds. Crystal Gale recorded it in the 80s, and I was going through possible covers, and I was actually going to do a bluesy kind of Clapton version of Don't It Make Your Brown Eyes Blue, and then this one played right after that, and the bells just went off, and I thought, I've got to do this, and I did it rather quickly. In fact, it was a week ago Monday. I sat down to record it. Played with it over the weekend a little bit at home with an acoustic. I used an Ibanez um, acoustic guitar on this one, and when I was doing all that library music, I needed an acoustic and I had no money. I had a $500 budget, and I went to Guitar Center and played everything within the budget. And the Martins and the Gibsons and the Fenders, they they all sounded okay, but it was the Ibanez that spoke the loudest in that budget range. And so I bought Eileen, and boy, she's played a lot of stuff. But she sat in my home office for a decade, and so I put new strings on her, and boy, she sounded really good. So let's play the track here, and I'm just going to solo up the original guitar part. Now, it may sound like two guitars, but it's just one. The U47 is in the sound hole here, and I have the compressor on, so I'm going to turn that off. So this is what the U47 heard. And you see that I gave it a good amount of top, 6.2 decibels at 11K. And then I took the bottom off at 130. So I'll put that filter back on and the EQ. And as far as the compression goes, I really like this compressor that's on the board itself. I've got him panned hard left, but I'm just kind of looking. I've got a 1-to-1 ratio here, so I'm being very gentle with this compression, and it might hit every once in a while. I gave it some back end gain. This is my favorite knob on Harrison Mitch Bus right here. The emphasis. You see at 280 hertz here, right there, you can see where that comes up. That's the emphasis of where that compression is doing the most work, and that's a magic knob. Thank you, Harrison, for putting that thing on there. I find more and more that I don't have to go to outside plugins to get the type of compression I'm looking for. Now let's add in the DI. I've got some stuff on that, so I'm going to take that room off. Well, I think I'll do it a safer way. There. Keep that turned on because I've got it spilling into two different reverbs. Now this is a Fishman built into that Ibanez, and I had it absolutely flat. These are brand new Diodario strings, and they're phosphorus bronze, I believe. And I put them on the Ovation as well. And what I like is they're not quite so bright. You see that I'm doing another, that's 7 dB way up top, 17K, and another couple dB at 5. And when I put these two together, it just feels like that was the track right there. On the compression, same stuff on the DI. No, I never turned the compression on. So the acoustic guitar is completely kind of unmutilated. Um, so that's how that worked out. The next thing I needed to do was figure out what I was going to do rhythmically. Now I had cut that with a click track, and there was a little bit of rushing, and so I've had some kind of terrible timing things to deal with on this one. Um, but I knew that I needed some kind of driving force, so I went over to Joey Finger's place and borrowed some stuff. So I borrowed a snare drum and a set of brushes, um, and I just call it the device, but it's a Cajun. I don't know how to say it, so I just called it device. And then he had a few other toys. There was a tambourine that sounded great, and I just sat on the floor with those brushes and played all of those instruments. So the first one is this device, and you see that I'm using some compression here, a little bit more. So I'm reducing by about 3 dB at a ratio of 4 to 1. The emphasis is all the way down because it's kind of the kick drum. Of course I recorded, I'll turn that compression off. And you see that it's just a little thin without a little hop. And I've got the emphasis set at 100 hertz. On the EQ on this, I'll turn off the filter in the EQ. So based on feedback in the mix tank with the boys, I'm really enjoying Pure Mix. If you guys don't belong, I'm really enjoying the community there. There's some really talented engineers, and I like how we're all helping each other out. And the management at Pure Mix has been golden. So you see that I'm adding some top here at about 9, and then I took a little bit of 3 out, and that was to kind of give it some room. And my first mix was really puffy, so I put a filter on it at 63 so that it's not quite so big. After that, I'm sitting on the floor with the U47 right over some steel brushes, and one of them was really ragged. So that's the one I leaned into. Put a pretty good filter on that. So on the EQ side, I had it brighter, and the feedback was it's really brushy. So I took 2 dB at 4K and pulled that back. I left the top absolutely alone, and I took a couple couple dB at almost 500, and that is about all I did to that. There's some sends and stuff.
It's been a too long time with no peace of mind.
So
I'm ready for the times to get better. It's been a
So the thing and the tambourine are the thing. I don't know what you call it. But Joey just had this purple thing, and you struck it, and it resonated, and it's almost in tune, and it's just out of tune enough with the track to create some dissonance. And I struck it, and then there was my tambourine hit, and literally that's with that. And I'm just striking it, editing out that strike, and then moving it across in front of the Neumann so that it gets bigger, and then it goes back away. And it's just in there to kind of hint at a haunt. The other thing, and the last thing I did on the percussion is what I call the scrape. I used this on the Bosman Brothers record when I produced that. Gosh, has it been 15 years ago now? That was an acoustic record, and we just kind of opened up the soundscapes a little bit on that one, and I turned a snare drum upside down and played. So I'm not hearing anything. I think we're over. There's the scrape. And what I did is with that is I took the brush and I scraped it on the spring itself, and the spring is fairly tight, and just and try to make that swoop kind of like you're shaving. So that's the percussion. I did a pass. This is just direct with that Fishman flat. And this is just little flares. I find because I'm in a more public environment here at this particular location that if I can record direct, I do it just so that I'm not battling outside noise and these kinds of things. And so I just did little pieces with that. Let's see if we put any compression on that. Yeah, it's just catching the really kind of out of control stuff. I did the release is very long on this one with a ratio of 1:1. I didn't give it any makeup gain, and maybe you guys are seeing that these board compressors are actually quite deadly. So are these gates, really deadly. And I see that I am using a gate on this. So on the EQ, I didn't do much to that. I just let it be.
It's burning holes in my mind.
And I did one more. I did one more thing that is at the lead, and I just did with the Fishman flat. I did what I call a chug, and I have a lot of EQ on that. 5 dB at 1K. So I just needed that to kind of jump out, tip to the right just a little bit, and here that is. The secret to this particular sound is that compressor, 1:1 ratio, and I did a makeup gain on here that's 1.8 dB with a low, very low emphasis. So that's all that part even did. I needed some low end, so this is the alembic bass. What I love about the alembic bass is I can dial about any sound I want from the guitar itself. So as I'm listening during the performance, I can kind of tune that sound to what I think I'm going to want to mix. So I get it really close. On the EQ side, we did brighten her up a little bit at 4K and 5 dB all the way up top at 12. Gave it a small dip here at almost 500. Again, it's about this compressor. And I was in the dynamic that I wanted when I cut it. I was very careful when we cut this that I was monitoring somewhat close to what I thought the mix would be, so my dynamics would be correct. And when you're playing really gentle parts like this, I think it's important that you're monitoring is you pay attention to that before you cut. Yeah, very, very little processing on that bass.
I feel so lonesome sometimes.
So that was it. That's the whole track. Now, the vocal, of course, it's the U47. Based on some feedback in the mix tank, it's hard to know when you're the singer what to do. So I did throw a little bit more stuff in here. I had an auto tuner on just because I was nervous, and I turned it off. I didn't use any of that crap. And I'm with Bob Clearmountain about that stuff in that if I don't need it, I don't want it. If something's really egregiously out, but yet the emotion is there, I'll do a render and punch something in to fix that really egregious thing. Um, on the vocal, I heard the word nasally, which really bothered me because if you know me, then you know that Willie Nelson was a large part of my early career. Uh, and he's, uh, it's going to be hard to convince me that nasally doesn't sell after something like that. But it is something I've always battled, and I was mostly a background singer, so it's difficult for me to be the lead singer on this project. Um, so that feedback is really useful because it helps me get to a peaceful place in these vocals, which has always been a struggle my whole freaking career. I did a low shelf, and then Tom Foolery at Pure Mix, he just identified 1K as the problem, and I'll be damned. Right again, Tom Foolery is a very, very smart individual, great ears. So I pulled substantially a lot out of the 1K, and then I started adding at the top. And I had a friend stop by, Don Vance. Thank you for stopping by. He's a brother in the lodge and all kinds of great things. And I played it for him. And as I was listening from a different position, I thought that the vocal wasn't bright enough. So I remember coming over and pulling these two up even more. So I did a high shelf here, as you can see. So I wasn't shy about adding some top. I also added a significant amount of top at 15. This is kind of what we call air, where I'm trying to, an intimate song like this, I want the air to be there. So I was adding the air there. And another dipper here. So right at 1K, I took another 3 dB away and I gave it just a tick of bottom, 2 decibels, all the way down at 42 hertz. I know you can't hear that shit, but I'm convinced you could feel it. Uh, this is another this low switch. So you know how the Harrison console EQ works, where the more you change the gain of a frequency, the wider it makes the Q. And I wanted it to be fairly narrow. So you've got this narrow button, and that you hear it. As soon as you hit that, you know that you can bump something. Um, so you may notice again on the strip here that there is no compression. Uh, there is, however, a de-esser, and this is just a Harrison product that I'm getting along fine with it. It's not bothering me a bit. I turn it on, set it, forget it. So I used the console compressor. So let's go ahead and see how much I used. Well, that's sitting nice, huh? This will be painful for me, but I'm going to solo my vocal. Forgive me, Father, for I have sinned.
I've got to tell you, I've been racking my brain,
Just about 3 dB, maybe.
to find a way out.
Standard release, a little
I've
shorter
had
a talk.
enough of this continual rain.
The emphasis is at
Changes
750.
are coming, no doubt.
And I added a dB on the back
It's
end of the
been a
compressor.
too long time with no peace of mind, and I'm ready for the times to get better.
Let's just go see what we had before all of that. I should be running around on my edit window, but I'm lazy and not doing it. Thanks for hanging out with me. This is a lot of fun to show you how I'm doing things, and I'm really enjoying.
You seem to want from me what I cannot give.
There's that nasally kind
I
of
feel so
feeling.
lonesome sometimes.
So I'll
I
re-engage.
have a dream that I wish I could live.
There it is.
It's burning holes in my mind.
So, you know, a lot of times I've noticed that using multiple pieces to do an EQ job or a compression job so that no one EQ is doing the whole job. I think it changes some of the character and makes it a little more believable. I've had a large distrust for digital EQ since I had to start using it, because the analog circuitry was so warm on the real Harrison console. And of course, I mixed a lot on an MCI JH 636. That's kind of what I started with, and then I switched to the Harrison when I opened my own studio, and that's what we had at Angel Beach. And then there was uh, the Trident 80B at Orphan that also sounded great. But a lot of times I found myself on Mackie Digitals and the D8B or whatever that thing was. And I was very distrustful of all of these EQs, so harsh on the top. I feel like these Harrison EQs, I can feel okay about going past 4 dB gain on a high thing, and not it doesn't bother me. But we've come a long ways. So there's my rant on digital EQs. How about we get into some of these effects? I'm just going to play it from the top here and just turn them on one by one and show you what I'm spilling. So the first one is a room. And I just went to Clear Mountain Spaces, and it's the Apogee Studio. And I've got the dang thing all the way up, but I'm only. You see that this would be nominal impedance here for the wet-dry blend, and I pulled it back a little bit, so I'm getting some dry signal to this bus. I left all the EQ alone. I didn't spill it into anything else. And looks like I pulled the trim back about 1.6 dB. Uh, but that's just a sampling of one of the rooms at Apogee. So, and I've got a lot of stuff spilling into that. I had the vocal in that, and that became annoying. So these are the things. I like this spill button because I can see what's spilling into it. I'll go to the sends. So I've got almost everything just kind of being in that room. Now the tambourine tail is actually another Harrison EQ, and this is the cavern. And I set it out about, gosh, the time is really long. I tried to get the tail to go all the way to the next measure. So we'll have to sit here and wait for that to go. And then I used the ACQ to just take the top off of it so it wasn't so digital. And that's about it. So I've got it on on what I call there it is. So that lasts a really long time.
I feel so lonesome.
On the vocal reverb, Mark, shoot, I do that every time. Shit, I do that every time.
It's been a too long time with no peace of mind.
Okay, I'll stop that now.
Ready for the time
This is just a preset I found called Warm Blanket in the Relab 480, and I put that on the lead guitar too. I forgot to show you the lead guitar. The lead guitar is just a Telecaster into the Metz amp with duller strings, but I did put a lot of effects on it, but they're all very subtle, as you can hear. We're not these effects are barely whispering to us. The delay here is Harrison's 3D delay on a flange setting. So you see that we've got all three delays are set very, very tight. And I was just looking for something to give a texture that wasn't reverb. And this seemed to do that pretty well. So you hear it just very subtly doing some
Get
stuff
better.
there. The big verb, let's see what we spilled. That's going to be, I put the lead in the big verb and the harmonics. And occasionally, you don't see it in the strip here, but I automated the kick drum, which is actually Easy Drummer. I didn't show you that one. Let's go have a look at that. I'm going to de-spill this. I forgot to show you the bass drum. And I'll leave the big verb up for this. I automated the moves on the sends. So that's a sample out of Easy Drummer, and then I tuned it way down. And I put a lot of top on it. I'll turn the EQs off. The basic feedback was I just had way too much bass at first. But there's the original signal. And then you hear once in a while it's got a bigger impact. And that's me just automating that send on certain ones where I wanted it to impact a little bigger.
No doubt.
That's what the big verb is doing. And let's see, what is that? It's another 480 on the gigantic foyer. And of course, I tune these things. It's really about how big's the room. For me, it's just how big's the room, and is there too much high end on the EQ of it. The only other effect is this guy, which is just an ambience. And so this is layered in support of the room. So I think so you see the two reverbs working on kind of the same instruments kind of gives them more depth, a little deeper thing. So there's the elements of it. Let's go over to the edit window now and just see there's not a lot of automation on this either. I was just really careful. You see here, this is the thing, that haunting thing. I moved across the mic and I just crossfaded those at the channel themselves. And I find that in Harrison Mix Bus, I actually do more at the edit on the mixing side. So here you have that bass drum and my automation pass. I use touch automation, so it's not perfect, but I just use touch automation to turn it on and off so that those big bass drums would hit. And there's really no fader moves at all anywhere on the track. Now again, when I'm doing the automation passes, I have a tendency to go to these waveforms and gain them where I want. So, for instance, this is a tambourine hit, and I can come up and work with that region and come to gain and just cut that gain so that it sits there naturally in the spot I want it, rather than using a fader automation or anything. Because in this way, I'm hitting those limiters the same. It's just more uniform, more smooth. So that's kind of where I go before I go to a fader move these days. Plus, and I bet you guys are dealing with this too, is it's really hard for me to use a mouse and get a smooth fader move. I use the wheel on my mouse, and I should get just like a killer mouse. My friend Doc, the sim tech at Red Wing Aviation, he lent me a mouse pen, and I forgot I should be using that, but it's in my flight bag, and I intend to try that out to see if it's smoother for that stuff, and maybe I'll buy one. Please share with me what you're using for controlling your faders. I'm resisting getting an actual fader port or anything like that, but I do miss the feel of a really long throw fader. Okay, so that's the automation. There isn't. I think the technical term is jack shit. There's jack shit for automation. Um, I did a fade out, and I can see here that I wasn't very professional about it. Apologies to the general public for that. Um, Finally, we'll go over to the master section, and if I turn my compressors on globally here, we see that we have a master bus compressor right here, and a little bit of EQ, 4K, 300 hertz, and 90. I stay off of those for the most part. Um, this I use when I'm mixing just to kind of grab the big stuff, but I'm watching this guy right here. I want my faders, I want the master to be at -6. That's where I'm aiming just because headroom. I just want lots of headroom when I go to master. So -6 is kind of where I go. I can see if I'm hitting this compressor at all with this little meter right here. And then as I get to where I think we're done, that's when I turn on the the SSL bus compressor. And let's play the track and see. A little bit of makeup in auto. Turn it off. I can't hear it. That's what I'm looking for. I can't hear it. So, let's listen.
I've got to tell you, I've been racking my brain, hoping to find a way out. I've had enough of this continual rain. Changes are coming, no doubt. It's been a too long time with no peace of mind, and I'm ready for the times to get better. You seem to want from me what I cannot give. I feel so lonesome sometimes. I have a dream that I wish I could live. It's burning holes in my mind. It's been a too long time with no peace of mind, and I'm ready for the times to get better. It's been a too long time with no peace of mind, and I'm ready for the times to get better. It's been a too long time with no peace of mind, and I'm ready for the times to get better.
Well, there it is, off to mastering that goes. So, I'd just like to thank everybody that helped out during the process here, especially at Pure Mix. I'm really enjoying you guys, so I appreciate you stopping by the channel, and I'm having fun producing and growing with you guys. So it's just a ball. Peace out, and be well, and thanks for tuning in.